So first, this is the US job market condition over the past 20 years, just as a reference point for Greenwich to compare with. So from year 2000, there was a artificial job creation. We know it was artificial because we went through the foreclosure crisis with the subprime lending, overstretching people's budget, not even checking people's income. That led to short-term economic boost, but it imploded because it was unsustainable. And from the low point in 2010, the middle of the chart, the low point, America experienced the longest economic expansion ever, 10 straight years of consistent job creation. President Obama, President Trump, 10 straight years of job creation, amazing feat, such that unemployment rate across all age groups, across all demographic characteristics, across all racial groups, reaching essentially an all-time low or close to an all-time low, and certainly the lowest in 50 years. Then the pandemic hit, and 10 years of progress gone in a single month, 10 years of job creation gone in a single month in April from the lockdown. Once the governors began to reopen the economy, jobs slowly began to come around. But as you can see from the chart, we are only halfway recovered. So we need another 10 million jobs to get us back to the pre-pandemic conditions. If we look at the local market, I mean, they don't have a very specific Greenwich job market condition, but the Bridgeport, Stamford, Norwalk, essentially the Fairfield County region, the job market looks like this, essentially flat over the past 20 years. You see that little foreclosure crisis situation, but essentially no job creation over the 20-year period, which is quite unique. Let me go back to the US. So this is the US. You see the job creation, but not in the Connecticut market and certainly not in the Bridgeport, Stamford, Norwalk region. And then when there was a lockdown, job losses now trying to come back. So overall job picture situation in the local area was not good. And on top of that, with the SALT going into the tax code, it really devastated the Greenwich market. But if we look at the job in the New York City, along with the Jersey City, White Plains, and does not cover the Connecticut County. So it only covers essentially the prime New York City market. It looks like similar to the US. And first, this is much more sizable in terms of actual numbers. So if you are looking at, like 7 million jobs in the region, this would be about 20 times higher than just the Fairfield County. What is unique about this is that, well, work from home. You don't have to live in Manhattan. You don't have to live in White Plains. So now people can go further out. Maybe even people will go out all the way to New Haven where they can seek out affordability. So the work from home has completely changed the dynamic between where people would be working. I guess, theoretically working for Goldman Sachs in Manhattan, but you can now live in Connecticut to do the work from home. So this has clearly changed the dynamic about the residential choices away from downtown centers. 50-state comparison shows the following. So Connecticut, if you see, well, it's a small size state, so we have to put it out of the little on the side that you see. Connecticut is down 5.7% in terms of jobs from 1 year ago in the most recently available data. New York State is down 10% because Governor Cuomo is much more stricter about the lockdown. So New York City and New York State is down much more, but overall New England states down more compared to the rest of the country. If you look at the southern states, the jobs are down, but not as severely because governors in these areas are saying, let's reopen the economy sooner and in a more relaxing way. And the warmer weather also helps in terms of the restaurant dining outdoors. So the southern states seeing less of a decline. Only one state, Idaho, is the only state currently with more jobs now compared to the pre-pandemic because many Californians are moving into Idaho. But Connecticut doing actually reasonably better among the New England states in terms of the job performance. Now, going back to the nationwide job market condition, so April was the lockdown where we lost 20 million jobs, sharp decline. Never seen anything like that in US history where you had such a 20 million job losses in a single month. But you see some jobs recovery because of the initial stimulus back in April. You remember the $1,200 check that was in place and the small business loans. And also for some realtors whose businesses were disrupted in the first couple of months, you could tap into the unemployment insurance for the very first time ever. Because thanks to the efforts of all local association president, thank you, President McAtee and others, we advocated to say it's not the realtors' fault as to why they don't have business. It was the government-imposed lockdown. So hopefully some of you were able to tap into those funds during those critical months when things were locked down. And also small business administration loans. If you meet certain criteria, you don't have to repay that money. So the stimulus money at least provided some juice to the economy, but it was fading away. So by December, essentially, we had job losses again, which is the reason why it was critical to have that second stimulus. $600 per person, more small business loans, enhanced unemployment benefits, because things were beginning to fizzle out. We know that vaccine is there, but the distribution may take some time. Maybe by summer of this year, half of America will be vaccinated. By autumn, maybe 80% will be vaccinated, which means herd immunity. So by autumn, everything back to normal. We can go see the football games, we can go to the restaurant, we can go on travel, but that's in autumn. So, but at least we need something to get us until autumn months. So second stimulus was important, but now with the Biden administration coming in, he wants to raise the stimulus, be more expansionary. So boosting the $600 check to $2,000 check and other measures trying to further boost the economy. Which will be very helpful in the short term. But in the long term, there's no free lunch because increased government spending means larger budget deficit, more printing of the money to finance that budget deficit. And what we are already seeing is that mortgage rate may be starting to increase because bond market is already reacting a little higher in terms of bond yields, given the larger deficit financing. So the record low mortgage rate that you saw in December, 2.7% average, may already be over. So in the upcoming months, it could be a little bit higher, but nothing alarming. Maybe it goes from 2.7% in December to 2.8% or 2.9% or maybe 3% mortgage rate by the summer. Nothing alarming at all. Most people will say, yes, I will still take that 3% mortgage rate. So the expansive stimulus package will help the economy until the vaccine does the trick. But a slight increase in interest rate, I think those will be of no concern, very little concern. Another interesting development of the current recession is this is the first recession where people's incomes are actually higher now compared to 1 year ago on average. So you see, this is the income chart. First stimulus boosted the income, then it was beginning to fade away. But even with the fading away, the current income situation is higher compared to 1 year before. First time ever in a recession where we have more income than before because of the massive stimulus package that was in place. I understand there are families who are struggling paycheck to paycheck. They're not paying rent. They're not evicting because of the rules on eviction in place. And also NAR lobbied heavily during the December stimulus package to say it is unfair to stop the eviction, but the landlord not able to get any return from that. So we wanted to assure that rental assistance is available. So tenants who are struggling with rent, they can now pay the rents so the landlords are made whole. Some tenants who may be lazy, who are not paying rent and not even filing for rental assistance, well, you as a landlord, if you are in that situation, can file it on behalf of your tenant. So contact your local government officials because we wanted to make sure, lobby to say it is unfair to stop the eviction while at the same time, landlords who have their own mortgages to pay are not able to get returned. So now at least there is a rental subsidy along with the fact that the landlords can apply for rental subsidy on behalf of average. Well, they're not spending it all. First, you cannot go to a restaurant. There's a lot of restrictions. So people are saving up good portion of that stimulus money, which means that once the vaccine begins to really become widespread, all this unleashing of the savings will go back into the economy. So economy looks to be in a very good shape, say in the second half of 2021. Because vaccine will be the key. Let's make sure we can do a fast distribution on the vaccine. Now, let me turn to the very good news. This is the housing sector. And you see that U-turn that is made in the spring of 2020. It went down during the lockdown, then steadily started to come back, and then some. Then some is where we are seeing sales activity much higher compared to the pre-pandemic levels. This is the nationwide picture. I know you mentioned about the local Greenwich statistics, those new reports. Please go into it to compare with the national, but it would show very similar trend. Home builders, same situation, sharp U-turn such that home sales in few months were 40% above 1 year ago. Whatever the builders are building, they can easily make the sale. Little retreat in the recent months, but still above 1 year ago. What do realtors say to their clients to demonstrate seriousness? Get a mortgage. So what are consumers doing? They are applying for mortgages, currently up 20% from 1 year before, implying that this winter home sales activity could be one of the best winters ever. We always have to compare winter with other winters. We cannot compare with spring. Spring, summer are very hot market. But if you were to compare this winter with other winters, it should be one of the best because people are piling up in the pipeline, ready to hit the marketplace based on their mortgage application. Let me now turn your attention to the other red arrow, the beginning, that little downward drip straight line. That's back in 2018. You see that mortgage application is drifting downward just slightly, nothing major, but slightly. New home sales drifting downward in 2018. MLS, existing home sales, drifting downward in 2018. So what was happening in 2018? Wasn't 2018 part of that great 10 years of job creation? And the answer is yes. It was part of that 10 years of job creation, but something else was happening. And what was happening in 2018 is from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, mortgage rate increased from 4% to 5% to show how sensitive the housing sector, home buying is to changes in mortgage rate. So even in a good economy, you have rising mortgage rate in a measurable way can begin to chalk up home buying. Why are the sales surging? Well, mortgage rate, look at what's happening recently, 2.7%, all-time low. Never in American history has mortgage rate been this low, essentially almost free money in essence in terms of the interest payment. And that's why the home sales are surging. But I would say again that this is probably the absolute low point. From January, February, March, it will begin to slightly tick up. And by summer, it may be something closer to 3%. Nothing alarming. These are not measurable changes. And also, even say summer at 3%, it would still be almost comparable to 1 year ago. So there's no measurable change. It should not do any damage to the housing market. Home prices surging. The orange line is the median price, but median price are somewhat skewed because right now people are buying more expensive home, larger size home. They need that additional bedroom to turn it into office space. So the prices are being somewhat skewed because of the larger, more expensive home sales. To control for constant quality, There's something called Case-Shiller Price Index. Dr. Schiller at Yale University came up with it, and that shows that the prices are rising about 8%. But however you look at it, whether 14% or 8%, these are very strong price gains, which means that once the mortgage forbearance period ends, and I know some of your past clients are in that mortgage forbearance period, and President-elect Biden has indicated he wants to extend that mortgage forbearance period for longer. I have not seen the details. So it was scheduled to end in March, but now maybe it will end in late summer. I'm not sure. But let's say once the mortgage forbearance period ends, hopefully people have found job and they can make the mortgage payment. But for few who have not found a job and they may lose their home, I would say it will not result in foreclosures. Because of the price increase, they can simply do a normal sale without being a foreclosure, especially in a market where there are plentiful buyers. Days on the market, very swift. Generally on the winter months, it will be rising, not this winter. This winter, just as swift, especially on starter homes. A home comes onto the market, multiple offers becoming quite normal condition. And inventory remaining very, very tight, which is the reason why prices are getting elevated. So we need more inventory. How do we get there? We need to produce more homes. This is housing start represent new home construction. And for 13 straight years, it's been under historical average. The cumulative effect of underproduction for 13 years is we have a housing shortage. That's why we need to build more. So what are the builders doing in recent months? They are beginning to produce a little more, which means maybe the inventory situation will get better in 2021. I don't think we will get to the balanced market, but nonetheless, we are producing more, especially on the single family, the blue chart, blue bar line. Single family, that's where the focus is, and not on apartments or not on condominiums, which remains essentially flat. So good focus on the single family housing starts. Price of lumber has been one big constraint for the builders, but at least the prices are beginning to moderate. NAR has been advocating for reduction in the tariff on Canadian lumbers because the lumber prices really skyrocketed when there was a wildfires out in the West Coast. So why don't we bring more Canadian lumber into the country? By doing so, it can create more jobs in Connecticut. So sometimes tariff, the people think that will protect jobs, but sometimes you have to reduce tariffs to create more jobs in Connecticut, certainly the case related to home building. Now, let me turn to the pandemic and changes in locational preference. Office demand is not there. Even some companies who are adding workers are saying, why do we need office spaces? We may actually have too much office spaces in a new environment. I don't know how CEOs, whether it's Jamie Dimon, Goldman Sachs CEO and others, who say, what do we do once we have the vaccine? Do we tell everyone to come to office 5 days a week? Or with more competitive pressure to say, come to office 2 days a week when we have a lot of meetings, but the other 3 days, work from home. And if that's the case, many people who had a residence in Manhattan begin to say, if I don't have to commute every single day, why don't I go out into more peaceful, quiet neighborhood out in Connecticut? So this is a fundamental change that will persist even with vaccine. I think many CEOs are currently trying to see what the right balance are. Twitter, now aside from the free speech controversy, Twitter company related to their employees has announced that you can work from home forever. So why would somebody live in San Francisco in a small townhouses paying $2 million when they can go to Idaho and have a mansion? So you are beginning to see some changes from this work from home situation condition. We took a survey of realtors about their clients' choices, and people are saying suburbs. That's where I want to go. Or the rural area or small towns and away from city centers. City centers should take up about 1/3 of the responses in normal times, but now you see how low it is, only 14%. Very bottom, resort recreation area should be always less than 10%, but now popping up at 13%. And in fact, interesting dynamic is that when we look at the counties where traditionally vacation counties, say the Cape Cod region, or say Jersey Shores, the Appalachian Mountains region, Lake Michigan, home sales are actually rising more strongly percentage gains compared to other counties. So this is a percentage gain from 1 year before, which is saying that work from home can also mean work from vacation home. How would you know whether I am at home or at vacation home? Or why should the boss care? So work from home is clearly changing some of the dynamics about the locational choice. So let me wrap it up with a forecast. Economy. The middle column is 2020, down, recession. Economy is down, we lost jobs, but interest rates are very low. And even with the printing of the money, no inflation. Because printing of the money do not lead to inflation right away. It takes some time, several years. Maybe 5 years from now, we will begin to see a little higher inflation popping out, but not immediately. 2021, things turn positive because of the stimulus and also maybe enhanced stimulus under Biden administration and the vaccine. Jobs becoming positive, interest rates still overall remaining low, and inflation not a factor in 2021. As to the housing, the middle column 2020, we're still tallying up the December numbers, but once those numbers are in, we anticipate that new home sales in 2020 will be up about 20%. So very good year for home builders. And for existing home sales, we know the second half is very strong, but we also have to be mindful. We missed the key spring buying season. So second half made up portion of the losses in the spring buying season, but still squeaking out a gain in 2020. Home prices rising. 2021, mortgage rate, nothing alarming. New home sales, another 20% gain. Existing home sales, I mean, if the sales activity just hold at this current level, current speed, we should be up about 10% from 1 year before. How many of the people in Manhattan began to consider going to Connecticut, especially when the CEOs begin to announce much more flexible schedule?